So now we're going to take a look at Plato's view of the ideal education. We're going to see the academy itself, and then by looking at the Republic and a couple of other works, we're going to see how he believed education should work in order to create the ideal utopian society. Now I want you to hear the subjunctives in there. This was his vision. The academy, as he envisioned it, never came to fruition. He knew this himself. As you read, you can tell he is skeptical of people ever being able to do this right, because so few have achieved the level of understanding necessary to appreciate the forms. So those who are qualified to lead are ones who are always being subjected by those who are in leadership. And it was a great source of frustration and sadness for him. So let's take a look at Plato and the Athenian Academy. I guess I really am in his shadow right now. The wonders of technology. All right. So you want to find out about Plato's philosophy of education. He's helpfully given us a fairly clear one because of the academy and the way he viewed education and knowledge in this utopia. So these three works on your screen, that's where you will find his philosophy of education. How does it work? He had a very Trinitarian view of everything except God, it would seem. So the state, the citizens, and the way that virtues work, he broke them up into this tripartite reality. So he starts in the Republic. All right, let's start big picture. This is what a good society, a healthy, functioning society would be. This is how it would be structured. And then he zooms in on the individual. This is how the individual can be healthy and well ordered. So let's take a look at that. Here's a handy dandy chart. So the city, he broke it into three pieces: the guardians, the warriors, and the laborers. The laborers would also be merchants, producers, and artisans. Those are the lowest class. And we'll look at that in more detail in a moment. But we are focusing right now on the Republic. And one of Plato's central theses in the Republic is that justice is valuable for its own sake, not just for the consequences that it yields. So he would say, it is better to be just than unjust, even when the unjust seem to profit so greatly. And so you see a dialogue and a debate. Well, this person is living a wicked life, but they are receiving all of this success. So it would seem that that's better because this person who's living a just life, a virtuous life, is being downtrodden. And Plato goes, no, this is the better thing. And we'll look at that in a moment. So that's the main focus. He's consumed with justice in the Republic. So we have the guardians. The guardians are the highest level of society. They are ruled by their reason, by their intellect, by their rational soul, their rational mind. And the chief virtue is obviously wisdom. Then you have the warriors, or the protectors. These are ruled by emotion and spirit, and the virtue is courage. So they are caught up in avoiding shame, being vehicles of justice, doing that which is right, and they will risk it all in order to do it. And then at the lowest strata, we have the artisans, the producers, the merchants, the laborers, and they are ruled by their desires and their appetites. Now, they still, even though that's how they are ruled, they need to cultivate temperance and justice. And all of them, the guardians, the warriors, they also need temperance and justice. But they have these capacities, these chief virtues of wisdom and courage that informs how they live temperately and in justice and how they understand justice. So that's the breakdown. The philosopher kings are going to be those guardians who are the most effective in ruling and have the best understanding of the forms. So another way to illustrate this tripartite system is with, he uses a chariot with two horses. So one horse is unruly and wild, is difficult to control even with a whip. The other horse responds to commands well. It responds to admonitions. It is a good horse. It is an obedient horse. So where do you think reason lives? That's the charioteer. That's the driver of the chariot. So the idea is that if reason gives guidance, then with the help of the spirited part, talking about an individual now, then that person can live harmoniously and live at peace. When the rational part rules the appetites, receiving help from the spirited side's desire for honor and aversion to shame, justice will occur. Injustice occurs when the appetites rule, or when the spirited element honors something other than wisdom. So a person is rightly ordered when their drive is governed by their reason so that the appetites are controlled. If the drive doesn't respect wisdom, then injustice will occur. So this is a well-ordered person. And the same goes for society. You need those laborers and those producers, but they need to be controlled and policed by these enforcers, these warriors, and those warriors need to respect wisdom above all else, so they submit to those who truly understand justice and goodness. That's the perfect society for Plato. All right, so the ideal state, that is one where everyone fits into their place. Education was key in developing this perfect state in the Republic. One thing I want you to notice is that Plato is not a fan of democracy. For Plato, it's a meritocracy. I'll come back to that. Let's talk about education. The role of education should come alongside to unify the individual with society. This point of union, the way that you are wired, the thing that you were meant to do, and you fit in like a puzzle piece and you serve the Republic, you serve society. The point of union is where these four virtues come together, these four cardinal virtues of wisdom and temperance and courage and justice. So education is there to maximize the potential of each individual so they can reach the place where they'll be able to manifest the fruit of who they were meant to be, morally, socially, in every aspect of their outward life. So justice. Justice is core for all three levels of society. Humans should want to be just, not just appear to be just. It is only the just person who can truly flourish in life. This is true for the producer, the warrior, and the guardian. If you are truly just, you can have a life that is flourishing. You can achieve eudaimonia, that happiness. Those who gain power and wealth by being unjust, they are doing irreparable damage to their souls. And so remember, the immortality of the soul is a key aspect of Platonism. So what happens when you die? Well, one of two things. You are either reincarnated, or if you came to the place where you understood goodness and justice and beauty, the one, then you would be able to be now in a spiritual reality fully in that realm, living in the ideal world, the realm of the forms. So that's the ultimate goal. You can see how I said there's Buddhism and Hinduism have strong aspects of idealism and Plato's dual world ontology tied up into them. So This unjust person is doing irreparable damage to their soul. So they are going to reincarnate and have to try again. Power and wealth, Plato would say, are of very little value to someone who does not know how they should be used. The only ones who know how they should be used, that's the truly just and wise person who possesses the knowledge. They can wield power and wealth rightly. So let's look at education. How was it laid out? All right. So we start at the very beginning. There are 5 levels of education. This first level here, this birth to 6, does not count as one of those grades or one of those levels of education. This is, as one of our previous class sessions brought up, the school of the mother's knee. This is informal instruction on your yes ma'ams and your no sirs, and your how to behave in society and how to be healthy. So that's the beginning. Then you go to school. So from ages 6 to 18, you will receive, and again, this is his ideal education. This is what he laid out as being the way you would shape a society through education to become this utopian reality. 6 to 18, formal instruction in what compromises the good life. This is how to develop sound character, to be the type of person who values justice and temperance. That's up to age 18. Now, if you are going to be a producer or an artisan or a merchant, this is as far as your education needs to go. Everything that you need to know for those low-level positions, you'll get by the time you're 18. But if you show promise, then you get to move on to the next level of education. So 18 to 20, this is where the defenders of Athens would come from, the defenders of the Republic. You will have intense physical training, military training, and then for the next 10 years, you will devote yourself to advanced scientific study. So once you do that, if you are still showing potential, 30 to 35, you will be studying this dialectical method that I mentioned before. This dialectical method of pure conceptual thought, use of reason, that enables you to understand the transcendental truths, to understand the highest level of knowledge to approach the good. If you do well, if you understand this dialectical method, if you are one who now possesses knowledge of justice and goodness, then you are going to be put into a post of low government. And if you do well there, you become a ruler. The highest level would be the philosopher king, people like Plato, of course, who wrote this. So what I want you to see in these 5 grades is there's a jumping off point after each one. You are constantly being evaluated in terms of your potential. The one who was to govern is trained and has experience in all areas. An artisan would cease training, like I said, after the first level because they already have all the culture that they need to do their job. Plato, very low view of the arts because it's all representative, so it's all shadow, it's all illusory. Now, training in the arts, for this reason, was heavily regulated. In the Republic, he writes about literature. If literature contains false information about the gods, it should be censored. Future rulers must never listen to sensuous or seductive music. They should only listen to the type of music that instills discipline and order. He was convinced, as I said before, that democracy, as he saw it in Athens, was a failed experiment. After all, it killed his teacher. Since democracy was a disaster, what does a healthy republic need? A healthy commonwealth needs rulers chosen not because they're popular and they were voted for, but those who are truly wise. So, philosopher kings are the only ones who can combine wisdom with power and wield it rightly. He was pretty radical. When you read his ideas about education and the way the society should be structured, it can be shocking. For example, Women in his culture, in his day, were considered to be inferior and not even capable of participating in civic life. But Plato, he was progressive. He advocated for women who were intelligent and wise. They should be able to come to the academy. And indeed, there were women in the academy. They can be trained. They should receive education. They should be leaders if they have that wisdom. He also said that to ensure power wouldn't corrupt, rulers were not allowed to own private property. So they owned everything in common with the other rulers, even to the point that the wives of the men were shared. So there goes our feminist model. But that was the structure he set up. Those who are properly educated, those who truly learn and understand, will never do what is wrong because they understand it. They've seen through their reason and this dialectical method pure justice and goodness, and now they're changed. They're not going to behave in the way that humans normally do. So this is the telos of education, is to create these philosopher kings who can rule with perfect justice, and when they die, they can now finally be a part of the world of the forms. And this cycle of education continues. So this is, as I said, a utopian reality. Flourishing, and Plato acknowledged this, would require all three parts of the human and all three levels of society to function properly and in their proper place. That everyone who jumped off after their period of time in military training or of scientific study, and they became the warriors and the protectors and the enforcers, if they were content to be that and never aspired to be rulers, then everything's fine. If the people who are at the lowest level of society, but necessary, the artisans and the producers and the merchants, if they were content to simply do what they were supposed to do and see the justice in it, everything would be fine. And if the rulers truly understand justice and goodness and aren't just grasping at it with errant belief, then everything would be fine. But people will be people. And Plato's ideal education, it never came to be. So that is, man, an unfair, high-level view of Plato and idealism. But I wanted to give that to you, so when we move into Aristotelian thought and realism, you have the two contrasts in hand, and then we'll fast forward through these other philosophers, focusing primarily on their models of education, but you need to understand where they fall on this spectrum, which is in a way a false dichotomy of idealism and realism. All right, thanks for bearing with me, and I look forward to seeing you all in Zoom on class. On Zoom in class.